1982 Porsche 911 CE. So let's go over the hosing layout on this and the condenser layout, because there's something on here that's different for you technicians who are getting into the field who are new. Maybe you haven't got a lot of Porsches. This is an upgraded system. This is not original. They took out the original compressor, and we have the sand-in compressor replacement in here. They took out the original tube and fin condenser, and it was replaced with a parallel flow condenser, more high efficient. Now this is a single flow. This is what you must understand. If you're going to do your upgrades, you have to understand the basic operation of your system and the reason why certain components are used. There is no sub-condenser in here. There is no multi-path parallel flow in this. This is one single path flow. This tube header is one complete header. Well, it is a two path. It isn't single because it doesn't come out the end. Let me rephrase that. This refrigerant flow comes in to the condenser. There is a divider in the halfway mark, and it flows through half of the tubes going all the way across. It drops down, and then it comes back on the other half pass and comes out with no subcooling, so there's no liquid. You know, the subcooling, where on most parallel flows you'll see like the bottom 5 tubes will have a divider to make it come out and subcool the refrigerant. This does not do that. Now it sends it down this refrigerant line, and remember, we come out of the compressor over here. Out of the high side discharge, you have about 8 feet of hose that goes all the way back over there. It comes back, it passes up, and it comes into the condenser. Then from the condenser, it goes out and it goes towards the front. The refrigerant hose flows down here, and you got about 12-15 feet of hose that comes all the way out. It comes all the way back over through here. It goes down and over. It goes underneath, and right here is your subcooling condenser. This grill you see right here, all this grill underneath, there's another condenser, and there's your hose connections right there, right there. So it'll go through that subcooling condenser that is underneath here, and then the hose returns. And let's follow this path. Now you have several more feet of hose. It comes all the way back up through the fender and comes back to the receiver dryer right there. That's the receiver dryer, and that's a sight glass with a little floating ball on the inside. So it comes back to the receiver dryer right there. Now from this receiver dryer, it goes to the expansion valve. So now it'll come out of the receiver dryer, and it'll go back up, and it'll head towards our air box right inside here, and go to the expansion valve. That'll go to the evaporator. Now from the evaporator, now we're taking the hose all the way back, and we're coming through the underneath and the rear of the vehicle, taking a path, and there's the suction hose right there coming from the evaporator. Now we're coming back, follow it down, and we come right back to the low side suction port, back to the compressor right there. We literally have miles of hose throughout this whole thing. We have 2 condensers. Basically think of it as one condenser. They just took the subcooling part out, put it up in the front, and then off to the receiver dryer, and then to the expansion valve, through the evaporator, and then back to the compressor. So these, when they get old, for every foot of hose you have a certain amount of leakage, and especially if the person just lets the car sit. And so this car has a high leakage rate of refrigerant. And you just have to expect that because that's the nature of the beast. Unless you went back and replaced all the rubber with metal lines, then you could reduce the leak loss. So what I found on this one, I hooked up my refrigerant analyzer and there was 3.9% air, nearly 4% air, highly contaminated with air. Moisture wise, highly contaminated with moisture. I cannot pull a vacuum on this and get the moisture level down. And so this is a lost cause. It's not even worth me, you know, this would have to stay days. Nitrogen purge, replace receiver dryer, overnight on vacuum pumps. This thing is so badly moisture contaminated. Whoever's a refrigerant recovery machine, they probably never changed the filter dryer on their recovery machine. System may have been left open to the atmosphere for a long time. Who knows? This could have been a project car. They opened it up to the atmosphere, put on the hoses, left the ends off, and it could have been sitting for 6 months with the ester oil exposed to the atmosphere. And so I'm just going to put it on the vacuum pump. I'm not even going to go after removing the moisture because I already deemed it, because you can actually measure, and with experience, it's not worth me going after removing the moisture in this system with vacuum pumps. But it's too bad because they put in the money to replace all the hoses, the whole system, upgraded, and then somebody goes and puts in contaminated refrigerant on a not cheap car, on a nice car, nice little go-kart as I would call it. So for now, unless I discover some problems when I turn this thing on and start it up and fill it, this might be the only video. If I find something worth making a second video, maybe some odd pressures that are not usual or something like that. Oh yeah, one more thing. Here's something that's different too. When you take the pressures off this car, this fan sucks a negative pressure inside this engine well. This engine well is airtight sealed. If you look down here, everything has really tight clearances and gaskets and baffles. This is an airtight box. Think of a shoebox that has no air openings. The only air opening is that fan there for the engine. And this is the only opening right here. To get correct pressures, the hood has to be closed and your hoses have to be ran down and under through some openings that you can grab, or those wireless digital gauges that I have, the pressure transducers. I hook up the pressure transducers right here and use my Bluetooth wireless and close the lid all the way so all the air can be sucked, because this is a turbine fan and it's sucking like a vacuum cleaner. Think of this giant engine compartment is a shop vac. And when you close this, this becomes the vacuum cleaner's chamber. And this is where you would connect your hose, and it's sucking all the air, cooling off the condenser. So how could you get, if you're like this, set up like this, and you're using cans and you're filling up and you're gonna get a really high pressure really fast, because look at, you have no airflow. It's sucking, but this is just sitting out in the area. And this is where, when I'm in gas station and other shops and see shops trying to fill using cans or using their gauges, and they're trying to go off pressures, and you see them with the hood off, they haven't a clue of what's going on. That's when you can tell somebody doesn't even understand the most rudimentary basics of how air conditioning works. That's one of the oddball things that's different about this when charging this type of system up. That also goes for regular cars when you put up the hood. I've explained it in a couple videos, but maybe it's time for me to make another video and show you the difference between hood up and hood down on AC performance on your gauges and readings. That's it for now. Until we get back, if there's any oddities that show up, there'll be another video. If not, there won't be another video on this one.